Do you prefer comfort over conviction? Let's get into the text. Amos 2:12. But you made the Nazarites drink wine and commanded the prophets do not prophesy. Let's stop there. Now understand, in the book of Amos, it was written by Amos, and Amos was a herdsman at this time, also a prophet. Amos was called by God to prophesy to the northern kingdom of Israel. The purpose of this was to ultimately confront Israel's convictions or their violations of what it is that God called for them to do, in idolatry and injustice and rejection of God's appointed leaders, and to pronounce coming judgment. Okay? Now, why is this so important? Let's get into who the Nazarites were. Forcing them to drink wine was actually a rejection of God's holiness, of God's call to purity for the Nazarites. And then silencing prophets was, again, trying to silence the voice of God, right? It shows us that even in the text, we have been a people rejecting God's design of who it is that we are called to be. Something that we wrestle with, you and I wrestle with on a day-to-day basis. So how do we combat that? I'm totally glad you asked. Hebrews 4:16 says, "Therefore let us approach the throne of grace with boldness, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in the time of need." And I would say that rejecting God's voice and rejecting his design for who it is that we are called to be is quite literally a time of need. And I can give you a step further. Romans 8:26-27. In the same way, the Spirit also helps us in our weakness, because we do not know what to pray for as we should, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with inexpressible groans. And he who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit, because he intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. Ooh, ooh. All that to say that, Stan, that even when you in your sinful nature have a desire to reject God's voice and also have a desire to reject what he has called for you to do, that you can absolutely combat this thing by going into prayer. You can't tell me that ain't good, because it is. It is. So what you gonna do today? Pray about that thing? Yeah. All right.